The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores, refreshes my soul. You know, one of the things I just actually last night was thinking about these three things: makes me lie down, leads me beside quiet waters, restores my soul. This idea restores my soul. You know, the restoring of my soul rarely happens unintentionally. Now, there are times, and thank God for this, there are times when I am ambushed with wonder. And I kind of love that. But that doesn't happen to me daily. Now, maybe it does to others. And if it does, man, I envy you. In order for my soul to be restored, I have to generally, there's two things that I have to do. The first is initiate. There are things that I can do for myself that lead to restoring my soul. And yet, what David writes, the picture he gives us, is a picture less of initiation and more of submission. Maybe for me, I don't know, if it's for you, good. If not, you can just flush this. But maybe my struggle is less to initiate things that would restore my soul, and more that I would submit to his provision. Maybe it's less about me striving to get my soul restored and more about me dropping my pride and submitting to my shepherd. I don't know, just a thought. David goes on. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Now, other versions translate this: he guides me on paths of righteousness for his name's sake. He guides me. That's that. Now I have to come back to that idea of submission. If I'm going to be guided, I have to submit to the guide. I don't like that very much in life. I am one of those people who I don't like to be told what to do. I like it if it's my idea. When it's my idea, oh, by the way, I'll just be honest. That always means it's a good idea. Outside ideas coming in, well, they have to be evaluated against my own very, very good judgment. You know, the word for all that is pride. And I guess I'm, using this, what is this, episode of Soul Care with Stevie Boy as a cathartic experience for myself. But I just notice in my own life how prideful I am. I don't want to be led or guided unless I get way out there off course to the degree that okay, it's obvious. I'm not going to be able to pull this off. Then I want somebody. And really, at that point, I don't want a guide so much as I want a fairy godmother to come along and sprinkle some kind of pixie dust and make everything okay for me. That's incredibly, supremely immature. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Paths of righteousness. Well, I mean, that's a pretty easy one, right? These paths of righteousness are ways of doing the right things for the right reasons. This is one of the things that has always been an issue for God's people. Doing the right thing for the right reasons. I love to throw rocks at the Pharisees. And I've told you this before. I think maybe one of the reasons I love to throw rocks at them is because I am a recovering Pharisee myself. But the Pharisees loved to do the right things. They lost track of the right reason to do the right things. I get that way. I'm going to do the right thing. And there are even times I'm going to do the right thing just to spite you. That's called, in the business world, I'm told that's called malicious compliance. I'm going to do the right thing, but I'm going to make you wish you hadn't have told me to or asked me to. Happens in families too, and in marriages. I can't think of a context where it doesn't happen. He guides me. He leads me on paths of righteousness for his name's sake. There's so much that can be said about these paths of righteousness. You and I are sometimes left to figure out what is the path of righteousness here. And I don't know about you, but there are times I'm a little bit baffled because I can see some reasons to and some reasons not to. This is something from my own experience, maybe the first thing on discerning, is this a path of righteousness or is it not, would come down to the question of, is pride involved, my pride involved in this in some way? Because if it is, I can be just confident that's not a path of righteousness. Well, there are times that, I would do the right thing, but for the wrong reason. See, pride is, and I don't mean the satisfaction of a job well done or the fulfillment of seeing. For me, one of the places this happens is with my kids and my grandkids, seeing them grow and develop and be, and gosh, I love it. Well, that's not the kind of pride I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of pride that is absorbed with myself. That kind of pride never takes the path of righteousness for his name's sake. And that's interesting. Talked about his namesake before, but his name's sake, for the sake of his name. This is not like, Joe the Second is the namesake of Joe the First. That's not what this is about for the sake of his name. this, I think this is going to, for any serious follower of Jesus, this is going to matter. Now, David was not a follower of Jesus. He was a lover of God. And in that regard, we're like him. But we have this something that he didn't have. Okay. For the lover of God, what is for the sake of God's name? Well, one of the things, for me, the first thing comes to my mind is for the sake of God's reputation. God leads me, my shepherd leads me on paths of righteousness, right paths, for the sake of his reputation. A lover of God and a follower of God demonstrates his love and his devotion by his behavior, by the paths that he or she takes in life. Okay, for his reputation. And his name is, in ancient times, and, I don't know where anthropologically we dropped the understanding of one's name, but we've lost it in our culture. Name is just a handle. But in David's day, the name was it embodied, it carried the full meaning of that person. It wasn't just a handle. It was, that's what we called one another. But it was, well, and so for the sake of God's name, to live consistently with his nature, boy, that is a big and quite challenging thing, isn't it? I want to follow the paths of righteousness that he guides me on, so that I will demonstrate, in a feeble way, I admit, but that I would demonstrate to some degree and reflect his nature for the sake of his name. Now, if it's going to be for the sake of his name, I'm trying to see, and I can't think of how it would also be for the sake of my name. Now we're back to the motive thing, right? Doing the right things for the right reasons. I grew up in a church culture where you did the right things because you were supposed to, and because there were always people watching you, and you had a reputation that had to be protected, had to be nurtured, had to, okay. I want to grow out of that. It's still here though. He guides me, he guides you along paths of righteousness, right paths, for his name's sake, not mine. This is not about my reputation. It's not supposed to be. Unfortunately, sometimes it is. The shepherd. And me, you, the sheep. Well, challenge, simple challenge, not simple. I can say it simply. Is he really your guide? And as you take these right paths, is it really for his namesake? Those are almost mean questions, but they're worth asking. I'll see you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.